Hi, welcome to Life, Love, Insight, Fertility Experiences. I am here today with Brittany Kelly, and I've known Brittany for a while and always really highly regarded her. So I'm excited that she's here to talk to us. She is a LCSW social worker and also the mom of a donor conceived child. So we're here today, really, Brittany, to talk about parenting.
hmm
Yeah.
So,
Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more or anything to add?
yeah, I'm a parent of a double donor conceived child. So this is an extra special experience for us as a family and my daughter. Um, we, come from a family that has a lot of adopted family members. My brother, my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, lots of cousins that are adopted, and a lot of blended families. And then we also have family that was late discovery donor conceived. So going through infertility, my husband and we felt very comfortable going into this world, even though we didn't know a lot about it, because of the amount of non-genetically related family that we have. Plus, we just have a lot of close friends that we consider to be family. So,
So glad that you shared that, Brittany, because so many people that I work with who are using somebody, using double donor are so concerned about sharing that.
mhm,
They'll share maybe if it's a single mom that they used a sperm donor, but they get reluctant to share that they used egg donor too.
mhm,
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah,
So what you said is so significant, right? You're comfortable because you have such an interesting kind of family dynamic going on, right?
mhm.
And what creates a family, really? And how do you parent children so that they understand what family really is? So what do you think? What do you think is like the most important pieces to this lifelong journey of family?
Um, well, for us, it is liking each other. We
That's really
just
important though. Like that is so important.
it's so simple, but it's so ridiculous. Yeah, we like each other, we do things together, we have, family. My brother is adopted. Like, it was never a question that he was my brother the moment I saw him when he was, 4 days old. Obviously, I think as a non-adopted person, I think I carry a little bit of bias about that because I'm not the adopted person. That was something that I really became aware of. Like, what does that mean for him? I don't, it's very
Never
nuanced.
asked him.
Well, we've talked about it, but he's also on the spectrum, so, it's kind of his perception of things is a little different. Um, and but I've talked to, my mother-in-law, I've talked to my brother-in-law about what it's like for them to be adopted, and that has changed over time as far as their interest in wanting to know more or not.
Mhm.
So, I think for all of our family, it is wanting to be together. It's loving each other. Um, it's and with my friends as well. So that's what makes our family. And then there's some curiosity about the genetic family, but not as much going on that I know of right now. There's been some, and I do think that there is some loss that's occurred for people. So, family is a lot of things. It's also the hard stuff.
Yeah, yeah. What kind
Mm.
of loss do you think?
Lots of knowing
Mhm.
about their genetic ancestry, um, loss from not having that connection and that knowledge about where they come from.
Yeah. So
hmm
how do you, first of all, your parents,
hmm
it's such a nice, I don't want to assume this, but I'm thinking must have done such an incredible job of introducing adoption and donation and different types of family structures to you.
Hmm.
So much openness and understanding and acceptance that this is just the way life is. And this is
Hmm.
so. Did you recognize that at the time, or did you ever take that away from the experiences with them? Or,
As a child, when we adopted my brother, um, well, I remember at the time, maybe, this was in the 80s, and I don't know when open adoption became more the common practice with adoption, because there was a time when it wasn't. But when we were adopting, like I was very young because my mom had me and then she had infertility also. So we spent we spent hours writing letters, and I remember going on camping trips, like writing the letter or folding the letters. We had an old typewriter. We wrote the type, we had to write letters, look, because my mom spent a lot of time reaching out trying to find children to be adopted. And I didn't know why she did it that way. We haven't talked about it, but she would send letters to hospitals. And so I would help her on our little brother typewriter type out the letters. And I remember you'd make a mistake, you didn't have to use the whiteout and try to get it right. And then we'd go and make copies, and then we would spend hours folding the letters and putting them in the envelopes and licking the stamps. And I just remember doing that. Um, so it's just a funny story. So I was always really excited about having another brother and sister. And then, we did adopt a baby, and uh, the story was the mom had some developmental delay of some kind, and the parents really pressured her to adopt her baby out. And she had the baby for like 2 months. And then we had the baby for maybe 2 weeks. And then the mom wanted the baby back.
well,
And so we gave the baby back. And that was very heartbreaking. Definitely like a strong memory. But my mom and I sometimes talk about that. And we never would have kept the baby or fought or anything. That was totally understandable. This mom wanted the baby back, and we gave the baby back. And then we were going to adopt another baby.
heartbreaking.
Huh?
Heartbreaking for you,
It
probably.
was very
So
heartbreaking. Like, I
she,
definitely went through a lot of therapy later on as an adult.
yeah, because she so engaged you in the process to make you part of finding this child that was going to be in
Yes.
your family.
And
Which
I sang songs to the baby, and I remember I sang songs to her, and I held her as a little child. I was like 8. And then I drew pictures, and um the song was "You Are My Sunshine." So it was very loaded. So yeah, anyways, there was a lot of feelings of loss and trauma around that. And then the second baby we were gonna adopt, we also were very engaged with the mom. Like I knew her, and uh, she was really nice, and she would come spend time with us, and she wanted us to adopt her baby. She was a single mom. And the baby was born
oh,
stillbirth. So
goodness.
that was very traumatic. And we had a funeral for the baby, and she was cremated, and we had this big funeral for her. That was a huge memory as well. Like I helped the ashes, and this is yeah. We had her funeral on this property way up in Northern California where I grew up. And then, this was a whole event that occurred. And then we lost contact with that mom. Obviously, she was very traumatized by giving birth to
Right.
the baby. So then we finally adopted my brother, who was the preemie, very small. He was 3 days old. He was like 3 pounds when when we finally got to see him. Lots of fond memories of that. He was teeny. And so we had to fly to Arizona, and we went to the hospital, and he was so little. Like his head, I was again like 8, just about to turn 9, and his little butt like here. I would hold him, this teeny 3 pound little baby. My mom would let me hold him, and the nurses in the NICU were freaking out because I would bounce him and like do all the things that a little girl would do with a 3 pound baby. And he was very, I have all these really strong memories that about adoption. And then when it came time for me to go through my infertility journey, I didn't want to adopt.
Right.
Just,
Right.
which
Now,
I think
people think it's an easy process, and it is
I
not.
was like,
Oh,
no, I can't do it. And then it just was too hard for me to think about it because it was so traumatizing as a child.
yeah, yeah,
Even though I have positive experiences about it, I was like, I don't think I can do that again. I think I did that as a child.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I have people who say they're going to adopt, and then they come back to me and they say,
Uh-huh.
I want to use donor conception. I can't do this anymore with adoption. It's just too hard, because
Yeah.
it's
And
so,
not all adoptions are that way. And honestly, now if I was younger, I might consider adoption now that I've gone through a
right?
healthy birth and have had that healing in a way, and I've done a lot of therapy too, even after I had my daughter. Um, I had to go to therapy in within the first few months because I was so afraid something was going to happen to her. And I
Or,
had to reprocess. I reprocessed all of this stuff with my therapist because she was an EMDR therapist, and I had literally spent a year prior to getting pregnant with a donor conceived child going through therapy, just crying constantly. I mean, this was a very intense process of me just getting through my infertility because of everything that occurred. So, I mean, I'm being very honest about it. It was really hard. So, I went to this therapist, but while I was going through infertility treatments, crying every day for like 8 months, and then it dropped. She ended working, so I had to leave her as my therapist and went through IVF and all the processes, and it didn't work. It was so hard. And then we decided to just try donor conception because I have really bad endometriosis. My husband has terrible sperm. So we went that route. We're like, well, our chances are pretty low. Like maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I don't care. Like flippantly trying with donor egg and donor sperm, and it worked. So I'm like, okay, we're fine. This is happening. Um, and then once she was born, all of that trauma from the adoption started coming forward. And I was like waking up, where's the baby? Where's the baby? Like really scared that something was going to happen to her and process. And then it calmed down. I mean, your hormones are going crazy too after you give birth, but
right.
yeah,
So, Brittany, I'm so sorry you had to go through all that, but
yeah,
somehow you made it through. I
we
think
made it through.
have to
Uh-huh.
go through the process, right, in order to get through it. And
Yeah.
and then we were talking also, but
Mm.
what a traumatic time around adoption. I suppose there's engaging a child and engaging a child, in terms of the process and how much you
Yeah.
want to engage them. And so your mother was, lovely and engaging you to like everything. And
Yeah.
maybe what, parents really are looking for and what they need to know or want to
Uh,
know are really what helps because now the child is here. You have children, you need to get it, you find out you have secondary infertility, you use a donor or
mhm.
donor, and you have another child at home. How do you parent that child? And what
Mhm.
do you do when your donor conceived child starts asking you questions? How do you answer those questions?
Mhm.
To tell them that they're donor conceived.
Oh, well, you just start from the beginning and you like talk about, well, I think it's really important to be careful not to process one's own trauma with their child, meaning like a lot of times people will um tell the story of their child's conception, but they include all of the stuff that happened to them. And you just, for your child, you do not want to do that, You want to go to your therapist and process it separately and not put on the burden of the infertility or the trauma of adoption onto your child or whatever you went through, right? So,
And lots of times, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, because children pick up that you went through so much to have them and get them, to go through the process of infertility, to do all the steps that you took. But their story is their story, not your story. So you really need to separate that. And you could go through a lot, believe me, like I've been there too, but you need to process that separately so that your child doesn't carry that trauma with them about how they came into the world, and that they don't have to go through that. They're,
Yeah, yeah,
they're
no,
not
it's
set
so
up.
true. That's so true. I always tend to explain it like everybody takes their own path
Hmm.
to the same place, but you have to be clear on your path because you don't want your child to carry the weight of the one you took. You want them
Hmm.
into the world knowing they were wanted and loved, knowing
Hmm.
that you did everything to have them, but they don't need to know what that everything is.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
and sometimes I think with the struggle with donor conception for parents can be, especially what I've seen coming forward with like the late discovery DCP, donor conceived people, their parent, often because of the time it was just hush, 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 parents didn't get a chance to process all that they went through because they were told just don't tell anyone, don't talk about it. And then DCP who discover late, they can often hear like, you don't know what I went through to have you, or you should be grateful to be, and that's like, okay, it's not, we need to separate again. What is yours? What is the parents? And this is child. This is where they're from. This is how they came
Genetic
into the
grief.
world.
There's so much genetic grief, and people don't.
Mhm. Yeah,
Sometimes
and
I
the
think
genetic
labeling
grief.
it, I don't know if you
Yeah.
agree, sometimes I think labeling it helps. Like call it
Yes.
what it is, and then you
Mhm.
can make it tangible and put your thoughts around it, like kind of put it in your
Yeah.
hand and look at it.
Uh-huh.
But
Hmm.
call it what it is when all of us in the field know what it is.
Yes.
Doing a disservice to yourself. You're not allowing yourself to
Hmm.
go through that.
Yeah, the
And
genetic
you're
grief. Hmm.
allowed to go through genetic grief. You should.
Hmm.
It's
And also some of the things that happen are the genetic bewilderment, which I think might be kind of a controversial term because it's used a lot with adoption. Um, and that is the donor conceived person or the adopted person who doesn't see themselves reflected in their family, the phenotype, because your eyes look different, your nose looks different, your teeth look different, you really look different. Even though you can have a lot of similarities because you've grown with these people, um, not seeing that same phenotype reflected back can make someone feel like they are a little different. And that's that feeling of bewilderment. And that happens, with donor conceived people and children as well as adopted children. And that's like an overlap. And that's another thing that when talking about disclosure to children, making room for some of that. Like, how are we the same? How are we different? And what I loved about you. And um,
Yeah, no, I think I'm so glad you brought that up because, you have the genetic grief on the part of the parent, and then on the
mhm,
child, you have this feel bewilderment that sometimes we call curiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
That could go deep. And so lots of times the best, I, please correct me,
Mm-hmm.
my thoughts are lots of times the best way to kind of not circumvent these things because you can't circumvent them and you don't really want to stop them. You want to go through the process so that you can, because otherwise you're just going to be deep inside of you. But
Mm-hmm.
the best way to alleviate that is through transparency many times after we work through the grief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, I know you know this, I give everybody the same exercise, everybody who I work with. Every donor conceived consultation I do, I always recommend write a story to the baby while the baby's in the belly. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean your belly, it could be a surrogate's belly, it could be in, the adoptee, but write a story, and let it help you process.
Mm-hmm.
That become your child's first storybook. And it's nothing scientific. All it is a way of processing so you become more comfortable and secure in
Mm-hmm.
telling the story. And I find it, the people who I've worked with after they have their children use the stories and they find them helpful. And if one of them sings, she doesn't write stories, so she wrote a song, but you want to be able to give yourself an outlet that you're comfortable with to.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, that's something that I wound up writing my book
Mm-hmm.
because of a support group. The women couldn't write the story. It's hard, it's not an easy exercise. So I wound up writing a book that has nothing scientific in it at all. It's just purely the emotional journey.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you do then once the parent, once the child starts asking questions, what do you suggest parents do? Like, how do they, how do you suggest they start the conversation or when a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old has questions, like, how do you keep the conversation going? Because it's not a one and done.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think this is where it gets very nuanced because every kid is different and every family is different. And so I think trying to figure out like what is the curiosity level of your child's, what there are a lot of books that help facilitate uh top discussions around your origin, like what makes a baby, or I think the DNA one is like the secret code inside you. And you can talk about it's like a natural facilitation of talking about where you get your blue eyes or where you get your blonde hair. And it becomes a part of the conversation naturally. And then you can, it's really like tuning in. Does your child want more information? Do they not want more information? And it's a continual process, especially as they go through different developmental stages. The
Mhm.
conversation is going to change a little bit with the words or even how they want to talk about it. Um, my daughter's pretty assertive and interested and open and perceptive. So since she was little, she noticed we look different. And so we're always talking about that. And then every once in a while I check in with her um about any thoughts or questions she has. She's 8.
She's coming in that age.
Yeah, and also a couple of years ago, she wanted to have control over who I told or how I told.
Okay, she's in time.
Yeah. So she,
Have you told people already?
oh yeah, everyone knows.
Oh,
Like
okay.
everyone would know, people know. There it was never a secret ever.
Can we talk about that just for a second?
Yeah,
This difference between secrecy and privacy?
yes.
Yeah, because people get confused, and
Uh-huh.
it's such a big difference
Yeah.
between the two words. Like secrecy, to me, secrecy has shame associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
Embarrassed or you're shameful, and we don't want somebody to feel that way regarding their conception.
Hmm.
It starts to impact self-esteem and, just how you feel about yourself in every way. But privacy is allowed in this world.
Hmm.
Not to tell people if we don't want to, because that's
Yeah.
private information. And
Hmm.
it's empowering.
Yeah, that's where we're at because she wants to have the choice to say something or not
Okay.
now or share it. So in the beginning when it was
Now, what'd you do with that?
me,
What did you say to her when she said that, when everybody already knows? What did you say?
well, it's like when we meet new people.
Oh, okay. Okay. Uh-huh.
So because usually the question comes up if someone asks her, do you have any brothers or sisters?
Huh? Yes. And then,
Because donor conceived children typically have many,
right.
and she knows about that. So then she looks at me and I say, I kind of give her a nod, and that's my question to her. Do you want me to say something? Do you want to say something? Do you want to talk about it? And because we've had this discussion many times, and she will answer, you tell or I'll tell,
Uh-huh.
or I don't want to say anything, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, there is the secrecy versus privacy, and the secrecy, well, it was never a secret for people, although I didn't tell my job when I was newly pregnant. And that was the only like group of people that I didn't tell anything to. But everyone else in my family knew.
It was
Um,
private. It wasn't
it
anything
was the private, yeah.
private that
Mhm.
we don't need to know. Not,
Yeah, they don't need to know.
yeah.
And so we've had this discussion with Oriana, like you can say or you don't have to say. Like it's your choice.
Be really empowering her, which is wonderful.
Uh-huh.
I just
Yeah.
tell people, they have a lot of questions or have
Yeah.
preconceived notions, one or the other, or both.
Yeah. It's really we get so many great responses. Like we go to this circus. We love it. It's called Bernardo's, and it's very family oriented, and it's just a beautiful story. And we ran into the circus master, the head of the circus, and I was like, Bernardo's, and he was like, hmm. And that's we're talking, and my daughter was with us, and he said, and do you have any brothers or sisters? And she it was this whole thing again, like, okay, do you want me to tell them? And she was like, mm-hmm. I said, okay, well, she's donor conceived, so she has, 12 brothers and sisters. And his response was, oh, wow, that's so cool. Family is often the people around you that love you, that treat you well. And your mom was so clear that she loves you so much, or something like that. And, you know, I spend time with a bunch of people in my circus that I'm not related to, but they are family. They are my family. And sometimes family isn't there for you in the way that it was just interesting.
It's fine, yeah. Does she,
So
has she met her siblings? If you don't mind me asking.
she talked to one once, and that's complicated. Um, it's only complicated because we haven't had contact with them. We know about them. We've had some written contact, but we haven't been able to meet them in person.
And then
Um,
they full biologically,
no, have siblings that we've met yeah, there are a couple in the area where we are, and then there's a couple in Australia, and there are some on the East Coast and some in the, Minnesota area. So kind of spread all over, and we really would love to meet them.
so she's expressed desire to get everybody together.
Yeah. And that was when I joined the sibling group on Facebook. My Facebook got hacked, so I can't get on there anymore. But it everyone was talking about getting together and meeting up. but I've lost contact and that kind of fell off. And I don't know why. What happens is there's can be a lot of questions, and I think people might feel a little not sure how to navigate those relationships because it's something that some people are very into that idea and other people maybe not so much. And it just the cohesiveness isn't there for our group.
But not right now.
Not right now.
The
Mhm.
children, I don't know what the age range is.
They're all pretty young. Like 8 is the oldest, or 9 down to maybe 2.
They're still
Mhm.
kind of young. When they get older,
Yeah. Mhm.
what does that do though, you think, at least knowing you're having that contact? Do you think that's helpful for them?
I think it can be, yeah. I think she would love to have contact. She dreams about them, this
Oh,
one that she met, and she really would love to have contact. And I think what was hard is having that contact once and then having it kind of pulled back.
right. Right. Yeah.
And so that is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine so. Really hard. It's
Mhm.
difficult. So,
Mhm.
what do you tell? Because I know parents call you sometimes, and you're in a group with parents. What do you recommend, or what do you find the most helpful for parents? Like, if somebody comes to them, and they know that they're donor conceived, right? You raise them knowing. So that is where the industry has moved now, which is a good thing. So
Mhm.
I can't, imagine all these late discovery people who, since about 15 years ago, everybody said, don't tell, you don't need to tell.
Mhm.
Exactly what you said, right? Was going on. Nobody was processing anything. So a late discovery child, like in their teens, which is hard enough, right? What do you recommend? Or have you thought about what you recommend to parents in that situation when their children have questions or their children come to them?
And they haven't told them yet or haven't.
Found out, they recently found out, or they haven't told them.
Mhm. Oh, I think they need to do a lot of catch up.
Yeah, a really good way to put it.
Yeah, it's
Imagine
hard.
starting that conversation though.
Yeah, I think, well, number one is it's going to take time for the rebuilding of trust, if that is an issue with their child, not trusting them or feeling like if they lied or held the secret, or how could they? And because that is common. Other people I've heard were like, oh, not as going directly to the place of mistrust, but it's definitely, this is an identity trauma. I thought I was this person and now I might have someone else.
Would you describe it as a trauma if somebody knew from not having a memory or just a way of
It
life?
depends on how they are responding to it. Some people, I think it is very traumatic. This is a rupture of how they form their identity. Maybe, because it is a complete identity shift. Um,
So telling a child when they're young
hmm,
from the womb, you don't think it matters. You think there could still be a huge identity shift. Is that what you're saying?
if you told
It
from
grows up
when they're
knowing.
young,
If they grow up
well, it
knowing,
depends. I
if
think
they,
it I think it's really complicated. I do think that for some kids, it doesn't matter so much if they've known their whole lives and they're not questioning at all. And they're okay with it, and maybe they have questions, but this is going to change throughout life. This could change when if they decide to have a child, and then their partner has questions about, if they didn't have questions before. I think it doesn't mean they're not going to have questions at some point in their life. Um, if they've known, are they going to have some of the same, as a teenager or as a 12-year-old when they're going through forming their own identity questions? I think that there could be a time when it is hard. I kind of anticipate that with my daughter a little bit because she's so curious and
Do
she's so attuned to,
you think it'll be hard for you or for her?
I think it could be hard for all of us. hmm I mean, I think there's going to be that another period of grief. There could be. I don't know, but just again, working through the grief of the process of not having all the information because she was anonymous donors. We didn't know this time. This was a while ago that we went through our genetic counseling appointment, which wasn't great. So, so there could be that. There could be that. But the way that I sort of in my mind and preparing, I'm like, okay, I can't change anything now. I can just be present and here and keep that attunement and an open communication with her, which keeps our bond strong. Because if I am feeling sad or feeling anything about it, it's not because of her.
Hmm.
I need to be really clear
Yeah,
about
boundaries, your emotional
about the
boundaries.
emotional boundaries and letting her have her experience and me being able to be supportive of that. Because it's her life, it's who she is, and this is very much something that is a part of her.
Yeah.
And I love her, and I tell her that. I say, I'm here anytime, any questions. I'll walk with you always through this, and that's all I can do.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's so wonderful and lovely that you say that. You gave so much information today. First of all, thank you so
Mhm,
much for sharing your story because it's not always easy to share it. So it's really, I find it a gift when people do that. I don't usually have people share stories that much on
mhm,
the podcast for people who listen to it. But I think what you've shared is so important and so, um, I don't want to say unique, but I want to say something that people don't share openly today. And so it's very significant. It's really like a gift that you're giving the listeners. So thank you, because
mhm,
you're giving them some freedom to be able to talk about their own journeys. And then we talked about a little bit about the privacy and the secrecy, but mostly around grief.
mhm,
Allowing yourself to go through the genetic grief so that when your child has questions, curiosity, bewilderment, whatever term you're most comfortable with, they don't carry the weight of yours. They carry
mhm,
the weight of their own, and you're able to separate it. And then just being open when your child comes to you with any questions or any concerns, um, or their curiosity that you don't know the answer to, supporting them in it, because it's not necessarily easy. But I thought what I had learned was um, the earlier somebody finds out, the easier it is.
mhm. I think it is.
And it
You've,
doesn't mean that it doesn't mean it's easy. It means that
yeah.
there's transparency and openness in the relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to add before we end? Because unfortunately, we have to.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
I mean, I think what is helpful is because there's not really good research that's around donor conception or best practices. That does not exist. We're kind of making our own map for how to parent openly in this donor conception world. And so I think a grounding um, way that I form my framework for parenting is when I'm parenting everything that I'm doing, I'm helping to create open communication and respectful communication so that when there are hard times or if there are hard times, that that communication is there and those foundations are there to go through this.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
Mhm.
I think that's really fabulous and a great way to end and a great way for people to understand.
Hmm.
It's the significance of the openness.
And just forming a strong relationship with your child, parent-child relationship.
Yeah.
That you can be a safe person for them to come
Yeah.
talk.
Thank you, Brittany, so much for being
Mhm.
here and for sharing everything. If anybody wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Yeah, they can email me at Britt, at brittkellycounseling.org.
Okay, that would be
Mhm.
great. Thank you. Of
Yeah.
course, if anybody has any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at lauriemetz.net.